Welcome to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I am your host, Chad Hufford, and this is the podcast where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the working world. Each week, we dive into the incredible stories of honest, hardworking folks who have found financial success through grit, determination, and good old-fashioned elbow grease. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn how to turn your hard work into your own success story, you're in the right place. This is the Blue Collar Millionaire Show.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. Today we're starting part 2 of our 3-part mini-series.
Yeah,
yes.
Greg and Logan mini-series.
Yeah, that's it. Yesterday we talked about a little bit about where we came from and some of our upbringing and how we got into the positions that we're at now at Veritas. And I think today you wanted to talk a little bit about what maybe some of the hangups are for people to come and see a retirement planner.
Yeah, I mean, like on the nose, we're talking about that. Mm-hmm. But big picture, what I'm curious is, what do you see for those reasons of the hangups, the roadblocks? And how much is it we as humans just have those struggles seeking any sort of help?
Sure.
Regardless of whether it's a financial advisor or, I talked a lot about in our last conversation, my background is not in finance, it's in addiction recovery. And I think of the reasons people don't seek help there, right. The reasons I, didn't seek help in certain ways early on. And I wonder how much crossover there is, because I have a sneaking suspicion
there's going to be a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah, I would think so. And I don't know the addiction recovery world like you do, but I would imagine that there's quite a bit. You ready to jump into it then?
Yeah, I mean, okay. It seemed like kind of an interesting conversation, because these are two worlds that on the surface couldn't be any more different, right? Addiction recovery, the world of personal finance and investments. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, what's the common denominator? Humans.
Right. So from my perspective, probably one of the more common reasons why people don't come in is fear of judgment. It's a really awkward thing to go in and tell somebody that you don't know about everything that they've ever done financially, what good decisions they've made, what bad decisions. I think it's that fear of judgment piece. Oftentimes maybe shame is in there.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say is, one of the big prohibiting factors of somebody actually making the steps to go and find help with finances.
Yeah, because when somebody comes in, it might look a little bit different for different folks, but generally speaking, if somebody comes in to meet with an advisor at Veritas, we'll probably look over an asset map, right? So we're looking at literally a piece of paper that we've used a financial questionnaire to build out the answers that populate this map. And it's, what debts do you have?
Right.
And that's not just what car loans do you have or what's your mortgage, student loans, credit cards, getting into the nitty gritty. I mean, we've had, I owe $2,000 to this family member, or, that kind of thing. What debts do you have? What savings do you have? Whether that's liquid savings in the bank, what do you have saved up for retirement? There's other financial questions that go into that, but and the crazy thing is, how many times have we both talked to people who've actually made pretty good decisions and yet they still have fear?
Oh yeah.
Because they don't know what they don't know. They don't know if they have enough. They don't know if fear and shame and fear of judgment, it doesn't need to be tied necessarily to bad decisions. It's if I'm living in the dark of I don't know what's out there, I don't know where I should be, then I might have those same feelings, even if I've actually done a decent job with my decisions to this point.
Speaking of fear, another thing that I hear all the time is kind of the fear of comparison that people put on themselves. So people say, well, how do we stack up? That's a common question.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a very common question. How do I stack up with everybody else, with all the Joneses? Almost like, what that net worth number is on the asset map means how what kind of person you are.
That's I like we talked about in our last conversation, we're not scripting this.
Right.
We knew the topic going in, but otherwise we're just having a free flowing conversation. I did not know that that's a common phrase that people use. That's interesting because it's when I hear that, it's like, well, that's jacked up. Like that's not the point.
Right.
The point should be to, I need to do what I can to set myself up in a way financially and plan for things so that I can live the way that I want to live in a fulfilling way. And whether I'm, doing a little bit better than my neighbor, but if my neighbor is doing a terrible job, then I don't want to do a little bit better.
Right.
I want to have a completely different lifestyle, obviously.
Yeah. And so what we try to do is we try to reframe that conversation when those questions pop up to back to the individual. What are your individual goals? Are you on track for your individual goals? Is that what you're asking me right now? That type of thing, rather than how you stack up against the masses of people, because that's not a fulfilling way to live, right?
Right.
And so we want to always drive the conversation a little bit back towards, what your individual goals are for the future and what kind of life you want to have. And sometimes that comes with a hard conversation as well afterwards.
Right.
It's, you have some catching up to do.
Yeah.
And luckily what's nice is we're able to put numbers to that. This is how much you need to be saving. These are maybe the types of investments you need to be going into to meet those goals that we've talked about. So it does give clarity, at least. People aren't living like in this world of not knowing what they need to do next.
Right.
So, but yeah, very common.
Well, in the comparison thing, I hope I'm being clear. Like, I'm not saying it's not from a place of judgment that I say, like, oh, that's not what I should be doing. Because I do the same thing in other areas of life. Anytime we start talking about life stuff, for me, I always go back to parenting.
Oh, sure.
I've got 4 kids. I do what I can to be the best dad I can be. But sometimes I feel like the worst dad on earth.
Right.
Sometimes I feel like I suck. And if I'm being unhealthy, what I can commonly do is compare myself to, well, and I do it both ways. Well, so-and-so, I see how his kids are turning out. I feel like I'm doing better than him. Or I can go the other way, right? Oh man, so-and-so's kids, man, they're so awesome. Like, what am I doing wrong? What are my kids doing wrong?
Right.
Why do I suck at this? And both of those are wrong ways to look at it, but I can go there if I don't know what to actually look at. If I'm, it's like what we do at work when we talk about lead measures and lag measures, like the things that I can control. It's like, as a dad, am I doing the things that show love to my kids, that lead my family? Am I being intentional with my family? Am I communicating well? Am I loving my wife well? Versus the things I can't control. I know I'm getting on a rabbit trail. All of these things, they share so many common elements. One thing I had written down digitally, typed up, I suppose would be the correct verbiage. I call it the fear of opening up the drywall. I've dealt with mold multiple times in our house. 2 different houses that we've had, our old one and the one we live in now. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's a super fun experience.
Mold, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a good deal.
Yeah.
The worst part about it, for me, like on a visceral level, is I might know that there's water damage, there's mold, whatever, but then I open up that drywall or I pull up, the laminate flooring or whatever, and now there's no question about it. Now I see where this black mold is and how far it goes, and oh my gosh, like the dollar signs start spinning. How much are we going to have to rip out? Getting down to the timbers, all these things. The mold was already there, but now I see it.
Right.
And now, am I really going to walk past this I might walk past water damage for a while and just go, la, 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 la. I got other things to worry about. But now if I've, dug into the drywall and I see it, now it's like, okay, am I really going to walk past that? No, I have to take care of it. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have to do that. And with finances, that very much is a case, right?
You bet.
And I see that in recovery, it's like, if I am going to, I might have a sneaking suspicion, or I might just straight up know I've got a problem. But unless I tell somebody about it, I can close my ears and go la 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 la.
Right.
Once I tell somebody about it and I go to a group, I put my stuff out there. Now it's like, okay, I either need to do something or I'm actively ignoring this cancer in my life.
Right. Yeah. You know, that's one of the things that we oftentimes will get feedback from later on after we've had an appointment with somebody. They'll say, hey, it probably wasn't what we wanted to hear, but we needed to hear it. Because like you said, we opened up the drywall, right? We saw, okay, this is where we're at. And now at least they'll have actionable steps to take to start repairing and mitigating that issue that they have, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. What else?
Well, okay, so another one that this is a common issue for humans, but there's ego involved, but it's the lone wolf syndrome. Okay. In my opinion, that's a huge one that will stop somebody from seeking help in recovery. I'm just going to grit through it. I'll just figure it out myself. I don't need to get all weepy in a group of people, explaining that I've got these issues. No, I'll just figure it out.
Right.
And I know people do that in all areas of life.
Oh, certainly.
And definitely with finances, the idea that I'll just figure it out. I'll just, I'll read some books. Maybe I'll watch some videos. I'll teach myself some stuff, but I'm not going to invite accountability. The next discussion we're going to have next week, we'll be talking about accountability and relationship and why that matters when it comes to these really important areas of life. But I mean, how much do you see that lone wolf, and whether it's literally a lone wolf or like maybe the couple is a lone wolf, but not seeking outside help?
Yeah, it's interesting because what I will often see is folks that are okay with seeking outside help in certain areas of their life, but not others.
So it's like siloed?
Yeah, absolutely. So somebody's okay with going and hiring a dietitian or a personal trainer, but it's like the finances, that's something that we're going to keep behind the drywall for a little bit longer.
Why do you think that is?
I think it goes back to that. I think that there's such a fear, the fear of judgment and those sorts of things. And you know what I think a lot of it is there's a fear of complexity as well.
What, when you say fear of complexity, meaning what?
Yeah. So people see what we do as being this very complicated thing. Okay. And so, somebody has, hey, I've got, these old 401ks. I got an old Roth IRA. I have an annuity that my mom signed me up for, a life insurance policy. I had no idea where to start. And my husband's got just as much, if not more. We see stuff like that a lot. And so I think that there's that fear of complexity is what really prohibits a lot of people from coming into a financial advisor or retirement planner in particular. It's because it's overwhelming for them. And really that's one of our biggest jobs is to make things simplified and take the bite out of all that fear, right?
Well, so the last episode we talked about one of the things that was the most surprising to me, and you even said, you shared a similar thought, that when we started in this industry, we came into it overthinking how complicated the job of a financial advisor is, in terms of, this computer nerd or this numbers nerd sitting down at the, he's got 6 screens going on and number crunching. And that's really not the job, which is interesting because you're saying from the client side, they can have those same assumptions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's common to have those assumptions. And, the thing is that with our job, the more experience that you gain, the customer shouldn't have come in feeling like they're going to overwhelm us. Okay. So it's, you should look at it like you're coming in to getting relieved from all of these different things that are coming at you.
Right.
And in fact, I've had people where I call and they said, I don't have my act together. I just don't have my act together right now.
I've heard that phrase a lot.
Yeah, I need to get all my stuff in line before I come in. And then I call back,
which is so wild.
Yeah. Call back 6 months later. No, I still don't have my act together. Well, that's what my job is to help you line up, put the ducks in a row, if you will. So don't feel like you need to come in with whatever you think is the act together.
Right.
We're going to address everything and make it sequential and in order for you.
No, I've seen that. I've heard that. Again, I don't say this from a place of judgment, but it's so wild to me because in almost no other area of life would we do that. I mean, we always use the personal trainer analogy, but it's a good one. If I'm trying to get healthier, the idea, and granted, like people do sometimes do this, but the idea of like, well, I want to lose weight and then I'll hire a personal trainer. Right. Or like maybe that would be the person that would help you, right? Lose the weight and get in shape and get stronger or whatever. Ever since, so we've got 4 boys, but we lasted 12 years before somebody had a broken bone in our family.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah. 4 boys jumping off the couch and mauling each other all day long. But over Christmas, my oldest son, Eli, fractured up his wrist bad. And that experience as a dad, I'm scared and all this, and we're sitting at OPA there. And, but I guess it would have been the surgeon who came in after all these different people checking and stuff. And he's talking with us, but there was such calmness. This was the opposite of like, he wasn't overwhelmed. He wasn't freaked out.
Right.
Oh my goodness. What'd you do?
Yeah. No, it's just normal.
Yeah. Just, okay. Yeah. And he gave us a little bit of like, okay, yeah, we'll probably do this. We'll probably do that. We got to watch out for it. But it's just, it's no big deal. We're going to take care of things. Not that he would say no big deal, but we're going to take care of things. There's a plan together, or there's a plan that we're going to put together. I was scared. I felt overwhelmed.
Sure.
But he knew what he was doing. The idea that like, we're going to let him heal up a bit and then we'll go to the surgeon to have him get his wrist better. It's like, no, things are not where things are not where they should be.
Right.
Let's go to the expert and get things where they should be.
That's funny. Yeah, that's an interesting analogy. It reminds me of flying in Kodiak one time. We were flying for a hunt, and the wind was really nasty, and we're flying, and we're just getting hammered in the airplane. And I was freaking out, probably holding on to my dad's arm, like, Dad, what's happening? But the pilot was reading a newspaper. It's like it was normal for him,
right?
To deal.
Hopefully, he wasn't hammered too.
Right? No, I don't think so.
Different type of hammering.
Yeah. Hammered in
the wind was hammering. Yes. Okay.
Yes. No, we weren't.
That's good.
That's hilarious. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, we're totally used to seeing complex cases, lots of old accounts out there that are doing who knows what,
right?
And organizing those. In fact, one of the things that I tell people is like, you do in fact have a whole bunch of old cups out there doing all kinds of different things. What we're going to do is we're going to take all those and we're going to pour them into like one pitcher,
right?
So that everything's working together. So anyway.
So, okay. One other thing that I wrote down, I definitely see it in the recovery world. I would imagine that you see it in the world of finance, but I'm curious. And I'll just say lack of awareness, like lack of self-awareness. Basically the inability of somebody to honestly look at themselves in the mirror.
Sure.
And this one, I mean, this might, really touch on some people's nerves, because everyone, I think, struggles with this in some way. I like to think of myself as pretty self-aware, but there's areas of my life that I don't really want to look at that right now.
Right.
And, in recovery, somebody might go, well, my wife, she wanted me to check this out, or, my pastor suggested I do such and such. And, I'm going to check this group out, or I'm going to try this thing. But they're either not aware of the severity of the problem and how deep this tumor is in their life, or they're trying to not be aware in a way.
Right.
And so, part of my job, if I'm leading a guy in recovery, is to help him see, with graciousness, and kindness, but directness, right? To help him see, no, here's how destructive this thing is. Here is, what it's going to look like if you don't seek healthy living. That's addiction recovery. When it comes to finances, though, what do you see as far as somebody who maybe doesn't have the self-awareness to really see? It doesn't necessarily have to be a problem, but like the self-awareness to just clearly see their situation.
Yeah, that's where we oftentimes see that is with couples. We see a lot of couples that will come in, and maybe the wife wanted to come in, but the husband did not, or vice versa. And the one person's can be really hesitant because they don't want to know. They don't want to know what kind of shape they're in right now.
Because they're afraid?
Yeah, and they know that they've probably been destructive with their finances in the same way that you probably see it with addiction. Yeah. And so we do see those. Sometimes it feels like, we're like a third party marriage counselor in a funny way, but yeah, we certainly see that. But again, I think that it's the uncovering of that is what is very helpful for people. And it's, doing it sooner than later,
right?
Becoming self-aware sooner than later is, to me, one of the more important things. Here's the thing with retirement or retirement planning. If we're lucky, we end up with 2 doors to walk through in life. Okay. We can either go through the door that we retire with money that's going to outlive us, or we walk through the door where we outlive our money. Okay. And I think it's that lack of self-awareness where a lot of times people choose the wrong door, and then they're stuck in this spot where, they're going to run out of money in retirement.
Which you're being pretty like PR friendly, but literally either your money outlives you or you have no more money, but you're still alive, and you're essentially hoping that you die before you continue being broke forever.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so because of, and I think that all of this, I think the lack of self-awareness, I think all of it stems all the way back to that fear. I'm gonna bury my head in the sand so that I don't have to think about my future self. I had a good friend who I've been talking about this stuff for a lot of years, and this individual has never looked at any kind of retirement planning. And he's my age, so we're getting close to 40, right? And I'm like, hey, you need to.
Baby. Wow.
What's that?
80s baby.
Yeah, exactly. I know you're a young in there still, sport.
Thanks, Dad.
So it's like, hey, you need to probably start thinking about this as your friend. Well, he's always given me lots of excuses. That last week he said, I was at the grocery store, and there was a woman at the cash register. And he said, I don't think she wanted to be there because she had to have been like 85, 90 years old. And he was like, at that moment, I decided, I need to come talk to you. So, and that could be a reality for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's like, you're going back to work, and you probably don't want to be going back to work when you're advanced in age. There's probably funner things for you to be doing.
Right. And even that person, if you're physically blessed enough to be able to work,
right?
Heaven forbid you run out of money, you're 85 years old, and you also physically can't even work a job as a cashier.
Right.
And then you got some tough choices. So this, as we go into our next episode that'll be coming out, we're talking about the importance of having people speaking into your life, importance of relationship, and importance of accountability, right? And guidance.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that we've been talking about today, we've talked about how, it doesn't need to be as scary and as complicated as you might make it out to be, right? A lot of times the monster, once you see it, isn't as scary as it is when it's in the shadows, right? When it's in the closet. But even if it is really scary, even if it is complicated,
Mhm.
and I mean, what I'm about to say, 100%, it applies to addiction recovery, it applies to finances. That monster can be as scary as anything you've ever faced.
Mhm.
And yet I promise you, it will be easier to face it alongside people who care about you,
Yeah.
alongside people who you let, healthy people who you let into your life, who you trust, who can speak into your life, who can give feedback, who can give counsel, who can guide you. There is no monster that is better fought alone as
Right.
opposed to,
Mhm.
with a group of people who care about you.
Absolutely. And I do want to say before we sign off here, it's not always that you peel into the drywall and you see a huge problem either.
Right.
I've had lots of people that have come in and we look at things and then we look at what we call a retirement map. And I'm like, oh, and by the way, you guys are in great shape. And I don't see why you couldn't retire at the age that you want to retire at with the kind of income that you were hoping that you could have.
Yeah.
You're in great shape. And, that always comes with, whew, that feels really nice to hear. Because you're getting actual validation, like, hey, okay, so the sacrifices that we've made, or the money that we've set aside is actually doing something.
Right.
And so it's just that clarity and, that you get from knowing where you are. And so, but yeah, love what you said there about, what did you say? No monster should be fought alone.
Yeah. And I realize, again, recovery is in my blood, right? Like I'm always going to relate things to that. But yeah, the monster doesn't have to be, oh, you have a ton of debt, or, oh, you haven't saved anything. It could be, yeah, you've got all these different accounts. You got to do some rollovers. You got to do a bunch of paperwork. Hey, let us help you. Let us be your guide.
Awesome. So
you don't have to be the one to try to figure out, or somebody had a family member pass, which is tragic. And yet, yeah, there is some financial ramifications that, in the long term could be a financial blessing, but there's a lot of, red tape and stuff and just all of that. You shouldn't walk that road alone.
Right.
And I mean, I always, use this analogy when I'm talking, if it's a financial coaching conversation or anything like that. It's like, you can talk to your sister-in-law or your next door neighbor or, the lady in your prayer group at church about these things. And they might be a really good support structure. There's a really good chance that that's not the best person to be speaking in.
Yeah.
Like, you never know, maybe, but there's a really good chance that it would be better to hire a professional, to work with somebody who is not your direct family member, to work with somebody who can be a little bit detached on a professional level, but they still care about you and they still know your stuff and they can, speak to you in that direct way and guide you.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that. So, all right, Logan, appreciate it. And so next week we'll be back on the third part of our little mini series.
Yeah, talking my favorite thing, relationships.
All right, perfect.
Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We hope this episode has been inspiring and beneficial to you. If you want help on your journey to financial freedom, reach out to us at veritasalaska.com. We'd love to sit down over a cup of coffee with you, either here in our office or virtually, and get to know you and your needs. And though this podcast is free of charge, we do ask that you please do us two quick favors. If you enjoyed the episode, give our pod a great rating on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you use, and also give us a follow on Instagram. We hope you have a wonderful day filled with gratitude and intentionality. God bless.